Bienvenidos al episodio 233. Welcome to episode 233 of the Learn Spanish con Salsa podcast. In the last episode, we reviewed the lyrics of the song Better Late Than Never by Romeo Santos and Prince Royce. In this episode, we're going to shift gears just a little bit. We're going to take a look at the lyrics that we learned the meaning of in the last episode, and we're going to take out 7 Spanish verbs from the song you can actually use in conversation. And I'll give you some examples of how you can start to use this vocabulary in Spanish. I'm also going to explain an easy way to conjugate verbs, even if it's a new word, like something you've never heard before. So a lot of times we go and look up verbs in a grammar chart, but this is going to be an easy way that you can use in the middle of a conversation so that you can know exactly how to use verbs that are a part of a specific pattern of the verbs in the song. And I'll explain that. Plus, I have the answer to the trivia question from our last episode. So if you didn't already, go back, listen to episode 232, where we broke down the lyrics of the song Better Late Than Never, so you have an idea. And you also get to hear what the trivia question was. But in this episode, I'm going to be revealing the answer to our trivia question about Romeo Santos. Entonces, vamos a empezar. Let's get started.
Bienvenidos. Welcome to the Learn Spanish con Salsa podcast,
the show for Spanish learners
that love music,
travel, and culture.
Close your grammar textbooks,
shut down the language apps, and open your ears
to how Spanish is spoken in the real world.
Let us show you
how to go from beginner
to bilingual.
Here's your host,
certified language coach,
Tamara Marie.
Now we're going to take a look at some of the lyrics from the song that you can use in conversation. But remember, if you have not heard the song yet, please go to our website, learnspanishconsalsa.com. On our show notes page for episode 232, at learnspanishconsalsa.com/232, you will be able to find the lyrics for the song with the translation and the official lyrics video that was released by Romeo Santos and Prince Royce. So make sure you check that out if you haven't already, because it's really important, I think, to listen to the song. Hopefully you like the song so you can become familiar with hearing some of the vocabulary that we're talking about. So before I get into those 7 verbs that you can start to use in conversation, I want to share the Easter eggs from the bridge of the song. So I did promise that also in our last episode. There are some Easter eggs, which, just so you know, we will not translate that to Spanish as huevos de Pascua. That does not work. It's more like secretos or something like that. But really, Easter eggs, if you're not familiar, I know I picked this up from being a little bit of a Marvel fan. There's things that are dropped into like movies, episodes, songs, anything, right? If it's an author you like, little things that only true fans would know, right? Like if you were down from day one, like you will know these things, right? So some of these are like just little things that are I guess put into the song. I guess if you think of like an Easter egg hunt, you go in, you go, oh, look at that Easter egg, right? So I guess that's the idea of where it comes from. But anyway, as far as I know, in Spanish, you would either just say that in English as Easter eggs, or you would just say secretos or something like that. But from the bridge of the song. So we went through the lyrics, right? So if we go to the bridge of the song, it starts out with, and these again, this should be obvious if you are a Prince Royce or a Romeo fan. So, and actually they kind of go back and forth. So Royce starts, actually no, I think Romeo starts out where he says, El amor que perdimos para mí sigue incondicional. El amor que perdimos para mí sigue incondicional. All right, so what that means is, the love that we lost for me is unconditional. But if you're, this is like super obvious to me, but like El amor que perdimos was a very popular Prince Royce song. I think it was like on one of his first or second albums. And then Para mí sigue incondicional. So that was another Prince Royce song, Incondicional. So yeah, actually, you know what? I think what we're going to do, I'm going to link to all these songs, these Easter eggs in the show notes at learnspanishconsalsa.com/233. And if I missed one, you let me know, because this was all ones that I could find. All right, the next line, again, this is what happens before the chorus at the end of the song. It says, y te me vas dejándome en la carretera. y te me vas dejándome en la carretera. So if you leave me, right? So te me vas, if you leave from me, right? If you go away from me, dejándome en la carretera, basically like leaving me in the street. So if you, and la carretera is, I guess, like the highway, right? Te me vas was definitely another song. I think it was also Prince Royce. And carretera was also a Royce song. All right. Then the next line, y solo quiero darte un beso. And I only want to give you a kiss. So again, darte un beso was another Royce song. And then it says, y te hago una propuesta, mi santa, quédate solo conmigo. Y te hago una propuesta, mi santa, quédate solo conmigo. So if you're a Romeo fan, so propuesta, perdón, is a reference to the song Propuesta Indecente, which is indecent proposal. Very, very popular song Romeo had a few years ago now. And so that's obviously a reference to that. Mi Santa, another Romeo song. And Quédate Solo Conmigo. So this was tricky. So there is a song, Quédate Conmigo, that's more of a collaboration that Romeo Santos was in. I think it was Carol G, and I forget who else. But then there was also a song, Quédate Conmigo, which was an Aventura song, right? I believe, or Solo Conmigo. But anyway, you have to check that. But those are all names of songs. But again, they put it into the lyrics. So, so the meaning of it, yo te hago una propuesta. So I'm making you a proposal, like I'm proposing this to you. Mi santa is like my saint. Stay with me only. Quédate solo conmigo. Just stay with me. All right. And the next line, aunque yo fui soberbio y canalla. Aunque yo fui soberbio y canalla. So first, the songs on this, Soberbio and Canalla, two different songs, both by Romeo Santos on his solo albums. But the meaning of this is, although I was arrogant, and Canalla is a little harder to translate. The translation I give you is like scoundrel, but it's kind of like, I don't know, like a person that's up to no good. Like you're kind of devious is the way I would say it. I don't know if we have like an exact good word for that in English translation, but yeah, scoundrel is the one that comes up, but that just sounds, no one would actually say that in English. It's kind of weird. But yeah, so even though I was, so you're saying he's not anywhere, I was arrogant, so soberbio y canalla, which is just like, a bad dude, like up to no good. And this isn't one you wouldn't say canajo because it's a male. That's just like the word is canaja. And that's another Romeo song. So even though I was arrogant and I was like, not a good dude, the next line says, I promise, te prometo, eres mía, you are mine. And te prometo, so if you remember, Romeo Santos had a song with, I think it was Drake, in the pre-Kendrick Lamar beef days. It's a song called I Promise, where Drake actually sang in Spanish. That was kind of weird. He actually didn't do a horrible job, I don't think. And then Eres Mía is another Romeo Santos song. So I Promise You're Mine. So again, this was just kind of a fun part of the song they both added. And they were kind of going back and forth saying the names of each other's songs. And they tried to like move it into, or mix it in with the song lyrics for this song. So I kind of love this collaboration with the two of them, because it's almost like not only are they working together, right, on this joint project, they released an entire album together, but it's almost like a celebration of their careers, right? Even throughout the different songs as they're working together, there's a lot of fun themes in that one, the album, but it's also just like a celebration of like, look, I'm the prince, I'm the king, we're working together. We've had this huge body of work, and it's something for the fans. And they actually did a show in New York, I believe, to like launch this. And I saw the clip. Actually, I'll include the video in the show notes as well, where they are just kind of going back and forth. It's like a battle. They're saying like one line from the song to start it out, and then the whole audience is singing along. So Romeo will do one song, and then Royce will come back and he'll start another song, and the whole audience is singing, and they just go back and forth. So cool. So yeah, that's why I think for me, like, and I believe they're going to go on tour as well. It's just great if you're a fan of bachata, a fan of Latin music. I'm definitely going to be looking for tickets to that tour. But yeah, so those are all the Easter eggs from the song that I could find. Now let's look at the most useful verbs from the song. And again, these are things that I hope you can use in conversation. Number one is ameritar. Ameritar. So in the song, he actually says, esto amerita una última pelea. So this merits one last fight. So this is the third person singular form of the verb ameritar that's used in the song, esto amerita una última pelea. So as I explained in the lyrics breakdown, this verb ameritar, it really means that like it's worth it, right? It's similar to valer la pena, but it's just this one verb, ameritar. And it's a little bit more, I won't say more sophisticated, but it's this way of saying that it's worth it, or it's like merits, right? It's worth a fight. So that's a line from the song. But here's some examples on how you might use this in a conversation. So, for example, if you want to tell someone like, look, this is probably a good time for you to have some patience. You could say, esta situación amerita mucha paciencia. Esta situación amerita mucha paciencia. So this situation merits or deserves a lot of patience. Okay, so that's just a different way of saying that it's worth it or it merits sort of the effort that you might put into it, right? The second verb that you have in the song, that again, you probably have heard it before, it's pretty common, is the verb luchar. Luchar, which means to fight. Okay, so luchar, again, it does mean to fight physically, but it also means to fight for something, right? Whether it's for a cause or for another person, then you can use the verb luchar. Now in the song, it says, voy a luchar por ti. Voy a luchar por ti. So I'm going to fight for you. But a way that you can use this in conversation, like you might say, yo lucho por mis sueños todos los días. Yo lucho por mis sueños todos los días. So I fight for my dreams every day. Right? So again, if you are really working for something, it might feel like a struggle, right? Or a fight. So that's another word that you can use in that context. Another way that you could use luchar, if you're talking to someone else, you're talking to a friend about like how hard they work for their goals. You might say, tú luchas mucho por lo que quieres. Tú luchas mucho por lo que quieres. So you're basically saying, you fight a lot for what you want. So you're basically telling a person like, hey, you have a lot of perseverance. You're someone who is not going to give up and you're going to fight hard. Okay, number 3 is bloquear. Bloquear. In the song, it says, ya que me bloqueaste. So this is the second person, and this is in the preterite past tense. So since you blocked me, right? So in the age of social media, this can be a really useful verb to know. So it just means to block. So if you're setting boundaries with people online with your social media usage, you can say, yo bloqueo a la gente negativa. Yo bloqueo a la gente negativa. So I block negative people. You don't want to see that in your feed. And notice this, a la gente. So this is the personal a in Spanish. So when you're using a verb to refer to an action like before a person, you have to add that personal a. It's just a verb grammar construction in Spanish. So I can't just say yo bloqueo la gente. Yo bloqueo a la gente. Okay, so bloqueo a la gente negativa. So this is just people in general. And also notice it's not negativas, right? Even though gente means more than one person, because the word la gente is singular, you would say la gente negativa. So yo bloqueo a la gente negativa. Or if you were, gossiping about someone else's drama, like in that song that we heard the example where, Romeo or Prince Royce, they got blocked on social media, so they went to the person's house. I still don't know about that. But you could say, ella bloquea a su ex en Instagram. Ella bloquea a su ex en Instagram. So she blocks her ex on Instagram. All right. So again, these are things that you can use when you're referring to, common sort of social media activities, but also literally to block. I think the most common way we probably use it is we're talking about blocking someone on like one of the platforms. Okay, now before I go on to the other verbs in the song, I do want to give you the answer to the trivia question from the last episode. So if you remember, we kind of ended off with a little trivia question about Romeo Santos. And the question was, what was the name of the group Aventura before they were named Aventura? So I don't even know if you knew that they had another name before. The name of the group Aventura was Los Teenagers. Los Teenagers. And if it sounds like I'm saying teenagers with a bad Spanish accent, that's basically what it is. It means the teenagers. But it's a very like Spanglish way of saying teenagers, because it's really adolescentes is the way you would say that. But kind of like the Spanglish way of saying it in New York, Los Teenagers. So there you go. That was the name before Aventura. I think it's kind of funny. All right, moving on. So the next verb that we have is resultar. Resultar. And this one is a little difficult, right? Because it does sound like to result. And it sort of does mean that. It means like to result in, right? But it's more of like how something turns out, or like the effect of it, or how it works out. So it can be a little bit tricky as an English speaker to kind of use this, because in our minds it's just like, oh, this results in that. But resulta is almost talking about like how things turn out or how they work out. Okay. So in the song it says a ver si me resulta. So he was talking about, I'm going to just show up at our house and see if that works out for me. A ver si me resulta. So it's about how things work out or how things turn out, or if something causes something else to turn out a certain way. So let's look at some other examples. Maybe it'll make a little bit more sense, because this one might be, again, a little tough. You might need to practice this a little bit before you're comfortable with using it in conversation. So let's say you're talking about a plan going well, right? Like, okay, this is if I want things to turn out well. I could say, todo resulta mejor si te preparas. Todo resulta mejor si te preparas. So things turn out better if you prepare, right? Everything will turn out better. Everything turns out better if you prepare. So this is just like a general statement, right? Resulta mejor, right? Turns out better, works out better if you prepare. Another example, and again, this is like if you're just talking about something that you're kind of learning, right? It's like, oh, this kind of, it turns out that this is the case, right? Like in English, we might say, oh, it turns out that, and in Spanish, you would say resulta que. So instead of just resultar by itself, this is specifically resultar que. So if I want to say resulta que, and this again comes up usually if you're talking about chisme, which is gossip, you're kind of talking about kind of what something turned out to be. So I could say, resulta que María tiene un secreto. Resulta que María tiene un secreto. Like it turns out Maria has a secret. Okay, so again, this one I would definitely practice, using some examples of it to really get you thinking in this way, because it's not exactly how we might express that in English. All right. Number 5 is anhelar. Anhelar. And this is spelled Anhelar. So there's an H in here, Anhelar. But the H is silent in Spanish. So you're not going to say anhelar. You're going to say anhelar. So that's also important to know. In the song, he says, tú lo anhelabas. Tú lo anhelabas. And this is part of the chorus. And it's saying you yearned for it, right? So this is the informal to form of the imperfect past tense, right? So again, in the song, remember he was saying you kind of used to, or in the past, this was something that you really wanted. So it's like you yearned for this. But if you want to, use this in regular conversation, and this is a very emotional verb. So you're really talking about something you're yearning or longing for. So something you really, really want to do. And it's a deep desire. So it's not just like a casual, like, oh, yo quiero hacerlo. No, it's not like just I want to do it. It's like you have a really deep desire. Think like bucket list type things. So if you're talking about having a deep desire to travel, you could say, yo anhelo viajar por el mundo. Yo anhelo viajar por el mundo. So I want to travel the world. You know, I really, really want to travel the world. Or if you're observing someone else's desire, you go like, ooh, I get a sense this person really wants this. Example would be, mi padre anhela una vida tranquila. Mi padre anhela una vida tranquila. So my father yearns for a quiet life. He really wants some peace and quiet. So again, this is more than just quiero, right? To want or I want. This is I really want something. I yearn for this. So really deep desire. All right. So the next verb we have, número 5, es madurar. Madurar. And this is to mature, right? And in the song, it says, por fin, maduré. It can refer to people or fruit even. So you think of like ripening. So it can be used for maturity or if you're talking about fruit. And if it'll make sense if you think about like, you may have seen on a menu in a Latin restaurant, plátanos maduros. So plátanos maduros are ripe plantains, right? So they're sweeter. So they're like more yellowish, actually they start to turn brown. So kind of like everything like a banana when it starts to get too ripe, right? But if you see plátanos maduros, you know that those sweet plantains. So that's what that word means, madurar or maduro. It's like ripe fruit, or, you know, we wouldn't say mature fruit. So to ripen or to mature. All right. So an example of how you might use this in conversation. So let's say you're complimenting a friend on their growth. You could say, tú maduras con cada experiencia. Tú maduras con cada experiencia. So you mature with every experience, right? You are getting wiser as you grow. Or if you're trying to explain why it is that you can't make the guacamole yet, if you've ever bought an avocado, I tell you, the timing when they mature is almost like impossible. It's like a science. But in any case, you could say, el aguacate madura muy lento en el invierno. El aguacate madura muy lento en el invierno. So the avocado ripens very slowly in the winter. I think any other time of the year, it ripens in 24 hours and then it spoils and you can't use it. So madurar again can be used to talk about fruit ripening or person maturing. All right. And finally, finalmente, not por fin, finalmente, number 7 is complementar. Complementar. Okay, and if you remember from the song, he's talking about las abejas, and he says, complementan las flores. Complementan las flores. So this is to compliment, and not, like I said, to give someone a compliment. That's un cumplido. In this case, complementar is like, when things sort of fit together, they complement one another, right? So you can almost think about it like two puzzle pieces fitting together, right? Complementar. So if you want to use this in a conversation, let's say you're talking about a relationship you're in, and unlike in the song, it's actually a really good relationship. You can say, ella complementa mi vida perfectamente. Ella complementa mi vida perfectamente. So she complements my life perfectly. Or if in a professional sense, if you're saying, someone's joined a team and they're doing really well, they're getting along with people, you could say, tú complementas muy bien al equipo. Tú complementas muy bien al equipo. So you complement the team very well. Right, so those are the 7 verbs that you can use in conversation, and we will review them in a second. But before I go over the meaning, I want to see if you can catch a pattern with these verbs. So I'm going to go through them again. I want you to just think, what do these verbs have in common? So we have ameritar, luchar, bloquear, resultar, anhelar, madurar, y complementar. What do these verbs have in common? If you haven't got it yet, all of the verbs end in AR or AR. So every single one of these verbs end in AR. And the best news here is that they're also all regular verbs. So this really makes life easy because there's a grammar hack that you can use to conjugate these verbs instantly without having to look at a verb chart or ask AI. Right? You're going to be able to conjugate any verb that you come across that ends in AR that's a regular verb using this hack. And I want to say something before I give you this little trick. One of my biggest grammar tips for anyone learning Spanish, because it can be really overwhelming, if you go to a grammar chart on a website, and I'm sure you've seen the meme before of like how difficult it is to learn every single word in Spanish grammar. What I suggest is that you focus on just a few subjects at a time and really master those in a context where it makes sense. So for example, I like to focus on one-on-one conversations and then maybe group conversations. I'm referring to other people. There's different ways you can break it out. But the one I would always start with is learning the yo form, right? And tú form. And then you can learn the third person like él or ella. That way you can have a one-on-one conversation. So you can talk to someone, you can ask them questions, you can respond to questions, and you can mention other people. So if you learn just those three subjects, then you'll get a long way and you'll be able to master them without getting overwhelmed, all right? So if you think about it, like I said, with just, if you learn yo, tú, and él, ella, you can have lots of conversations that way. And you don't have to remember every single verb conjugations, right? So if we look at just the pattern here, and again, if you are more advanced, this might be pretty easy to you. But if this is something you struggle with, if verb conjugation is something that you struggle with, try it this way. So like today, we're just going to focus on yo, tú, él, ella. So for yo, it's usually very easy. And this applies almost to all verbs, not just AR verbs, right? But for yo, it's really easy because the subject for I in Spanish ends in O, and the ending is also O. So you would just drop the AR from the verb luchar, and you would get yo lucho, okay? So instead of the AR, again, you kind of drop that and you just add the O. So yo bloqueo, yo anhelo, yo lucho. Very, very easy. So I would definitely recommend making sure that you have this pattern down. So just think yo, O. And then for tú, and again, this is informal. So, and I think most of the conversations you're going to have are going to be informal. You can also use usted, but I usually recommend starting with tú because it's just easier. So if you learn the tú form for AR verbs like luchar, madurar, you just really are going to replace that R with an S. So it becomes luchas, maduras, complementas. So if you think tú, has, and then you just use that to replace the last few letters. And then for él and ella is the same. This is also the same for usted, by the way. But, again, to keep things kind of basic, I would just think of this as more of the third person, singular. So él or ella. Then you just really just get rid of the R at the end, right? You slash it. So luchar becomes lucha. So lucha, bloquea, madura. So they all just kind of have that A at the end, right? So if you think about it, the pattern is really simple. Yo, O. Tú, has. Él, ella, a. Right? O, has, a. O, has, a. Right? So when you think about that, or however it works for you to remember it, yo, O, tú, has, él, a. Right? Or ella, a. Which I find easier to remember because ella also ends in an A. But this, again, just a simple way. Just think, I just want to master tú, y yo, él, ella, okay? O, has, a. And then once you master that, you can start to add on more, like the third person, the plural forms, but start with just doing these three. And this pattern works with all regular AR verbs. So that's it for this episode of the podcast. Again, just to review the verbs that we went over today: ameritar, to deserve or to merit; luchar, to fight for a cause or for a person; bloquear, to block; resultar, to work out or to turn out; anhelar, to yearn for, deeply desire; madurar, to mature or ripen; and complementar, to complement. So again, I hope that you have enjoyed this breakdown of the lyrics of the song, that you really enjoyed those Easter eggs, and that you're also enjoying listening to the song Better Late Than Never. As always, don't forget to go to our show notes page. We'll go over the vocabulary and the examples that I explained in this episode. LearnSpanishConsalsa.com/233 for episode 233 of the podcast. And as always, I hope that something that you've heard in this episode has taken you one step closer from Spanish beginner to bilingual. Hasta la próxima.
Thank you for listening to the Learn Spanish con Salsa podcast at learnspanishconsalsa.com.